Have you ever been discriminated against? Even as an adult, have you experienced any kind of discrimination? How did you feel? Many children today experience one kind of discrimination or the other, especially at home, and especially those children who do not live with their parents. And some parents might be doing this subconsciously without really being aware of the effect it will have on these children. So I hope this video is going to raise your awareness about some kinds of discrimination that children experience in the home and that make them very, very uncomfortable, that reduces their self-esteem, and that make them feel unloved and unwanted. Now, let's begin even with the general attitude of some parents and guardians towards the different groups of children living in their houses. I say groups because in some houses you'll find the natural biological children of the parents. You'll find house helps. You'll find relatives, both from the father's side and the mother's side, and sometimes friends of children, and so on and so forth. And sometimes the attitude, towards these children by the parents sort of differ. For example, a parent, will go closer to her own children, even the way they address them, in a nice way. They want to call them, they'll call them calmly and politely. Whereas for the other children, they don't use the same tone or the same friendly attitude. For example, if your child is, say, Mary, you want to call her, you say, Mary, come here. But if another child who is called Jane is not your child, you say, Jane, come here quickly. Jane, and things like that. So it makes the other children, they notice it. It makes them feel very, very uncomfortable. Or sometimes, you want to chat or discuss with the children. You'll be more selective. You talk with your own children, you play with them, you joke with them. But with the other children, it's all about, shouting and abusing, and, your verbal language itself is not friendly at all. So we need to watch out about that. And another area of discrimination at home is when it comes to food. Sometimes I wonder what is in this food that in some homes they're so particular about who eats what and who doesn't eat what. Let me take this simple example. Do you know that it's easier for some women, let me put it that way, since they're the mothers of the home, to give, another child or a child living in the house 100 francs than to allow that child to eat egg. Take one egg and fry and eat in the morning. In a subconscious, that child is not due an egg, or the child, maybe you say the child is from the village, the child, is from a poor home, and you think that coming from this background, where they may not have been eating, these kinds of food, which is regarded as a delicacy, so to say, and then you think that child is not supposed, is not qualified enough, let me put it that way, to be able to eat an egg. So it sounds funny. And in some homes, you see, when the food is, there's leftover food, they will give it either to the house help or the other relatives from the village, while the biological children will eat the fresh food. And some women will try to pretend as if they don't know what they are doing. Jane, well, just finish that half chop, yeah, and also chop this, chop small, flop you. So just finish that half turning plantain for yesterday. But the children know, they know what we are doing. Why didn't you give it to Mary, your daughter, to finish? You are giving it to Jane. You claim that Jane eats more and she needs more. But the children understand and they feel bad. I have a friend who up to today as a mature woman and grandmother is still angry about one of her aunts who will always force her when she was young and staying with her. The aunts will force her to eat rice and okra soup, while the other children were eating rice and stew. She will come up with a cock and bull story to give her rice and okra. She will always cry. And up to today, people like that combination, but up to today, she hates it because of her childhood experience. So we should be careful, about how we treat children in the house when it comes to food. Some will go as far as, putting more food for their own children, giving them meat, and for the others, they say, oh, me don't finish here, me not even correct here, just manage and so. When their own children will have the meat, why can't they share? And some will not have their children drink tea with milk or and sugar or whatever, whereas their own children are drinking it. If that is the situation for everybody, then it will not be a problem. But as they say, what is good for the goose should be good for the gander. So this kind of open discrimination is not good at all. And then when it comes to dressing, I remember one lady saying that when in church, when you see a family with a number of children, you can easily detect the children who are the biological children of the household and those who are not. What does it mean? You buy the best clothes for your children and then you just buy anything for the other children who are not their own children. To be honest, even as a mother, I know that it is difficult, to meet the needs of all the children in the house equally. But what I'm saying is that the discrimination should not be so obvious. It should not be so blatant, You try to make up, let all the children, look good in a way, whether it comes to their clothes or their shoes or their hairdo for the girls, their earrings, and so on and so forth. So there are some of these points that we need to really consider when we are living with different groups of children. And then when it comes to housework, some parents, they exaggerate because while their own children are relaxing, they're on their phones, they're on the television, they're in their rooms, doing things that are pleasurable to them, all the house chores are done by the children who, are not the biological children of the house or the house helps. Well, some people will say the house help is there to help. But if you have grown-up children who sometimes at the age of the house help or even older, they should also share in the house chores and not to make, the house help feel trampled upon, and some of the children will even be abusing, them and speaking to them rudely and adding them house chores, asking them to wash their personal clothes and things like that. It is not fair. It should be the work, everybody in the in the house who can work should work. If there are many children in the house, and it's not a matter of sending the other children to the farm or to the market to help you to do for those who work in the markets or wherever, whatever job that has to be done that is deemed difficult is reserved for the non-biological children. And while your own children will have the easier job or they don't have any job at all. This smells of discrimination, which has a very negative impact on the children living with you. What about punishment? If your child does something wrong, the punishment might just be a slight reproach. Oh, well, next time be careful. I know next time, why did you break it? Next time try to be careful. If it is the other child, you raise hell, you climb the wall, and you give all kinds of abuses, all kinds of punishments. You even beat, physical violence and all of that because of the child. Like I said earlier, what is good for the goose should also be good for the gander. So if two children break plates, they should have equal punishment. There's no reason why the other child should have a lighter punishment because he or she is your own child. So punishment should be distributed evenly to the children in the house. And I want to talk about something that, parents don't really think about, and they don't think it's discrimination. That is sleeping arrangements in the house. You go to some houses, the biological children have their own rooms or single rooms, or they share the rooms, two in a room, while the other children are all cramped in one room. Maybe one person has a room and the other children, about 3 or 4 children will share a room. Or when there's a visitor, you need to liberate a room, you ask the other children to come and use the carpet or the couch to liberate their own room, but that will never happen with their own biological children. So this makes the other children feel like second-class children, if I can put it that way, in the house. So we should try to be sensitive, little things that matter, as we say. And the children will grow up, grudgingly bitter about such experiences, and it affects some of them really, really badly throughout their lives. And when it comes to pocket money or allowances, sometimes the discrimination is, too obvious. You give your child maybe 10,000 allowance, and the other child you give maybe 2,000 or nothing at all. And on top of that, you add abuses for a house. Instead of give money, you don't say 1,000 for side, you need a glad and things like that. So if it is possible, let me put it that way, try to, balance the allowances. Let them have, equal amounts of money. We know that girls normally need more money than boys. So if all the children are girls and you are giving all the girls the same amount of money, which might be more than what you are giving to boys, let it be so. But let it not be that you give your daughter, some money, and your niece maybe half of that amount of money without any explanations. And children, even if you try to hide it, they always go back and talk about it. And you see a child, not liking you the way the child is supposed to, the child will not speak out, but there are these things, negative treatment that the child harbors, and even when they grow up, sometimes it's difficult for them to shed off from their mind. Well, I think that, or to be honest, as I said earlier, it is not easy, to treat children equally, with exactitude. Let me put it that way. Because, for example, there's a friend who said that in her heart she knows it will be difficult for her to treat another man's child like her child, so she doesn't want to stay with another. She never stays with any other person's child. And so when the house helps or house boys are coming, they know their position and their role, that they're just house helps. Well, that might be, a way out. Another lady said that, she didn't want to have many children because her salary doesn't permit her, and she wanted her children to have the best. So if her husband goes and brings, all the relatives, he should be ready to take care of those relatives while she takes care of her own children. That may be a point, but at the end of the day, we are all parents, we are all human beings, we are all compassionate human beings, if I might add. So we should try as much as possible to minimize this discrimination amongst children in the house, because it has a very, very negative impact on them. One day you're picking to go still some different person know, man they know. And if they treat your picking badly the way they treat different my picking, that picking to know will be happy. This is Mommy G. Thank you for watching. So subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed. Share, especially with the young people, and this one particular with the parents. And for the young people who have felt discriminated against in one way or the other, try to live above it. Try not to let it influence you negatively too much, and try to understand, their parents or guardians. Sometimes they might just be doing it out of ignorance. There's no scope for parenting, as they say. We make mistakes, and at the end of the day we regret, but sometimes it's difficult to turn the hand of the clock. So, see you in my next movie. Well, not movie, but in the next session. This is Mommy G.